History remembers pirates. History remembers buried treasure. History remembers maps marked with an X. History remembers gold hidden beneath lonely islands. But there is one treasure that no pirate ever truly owned. Not because no one found it, because it always found its way back. For nearly 300 years, captains whispered about an island that appeared only once every 50 years. No charts marked it. No compass could point toward it. And every sailor who claimed to have landed there returned with enough gold to buy a kingdom. Yet within a year, every single one of them was dead. Not murdered, not shipwrecked. Dead. Their gold remained, but their bodies looked centuries old, as though time itself had stolen their lives. The legend became known as the returning treasure. Most pirates laughed at the story, until one captain stopped laughing. His name was Edward Hale. He feared no navy, no storm, no sea monster, but one thing terrified him: an old coin. It rested inside a wooden box chained beneath his cabin floor. He never spent it. He never touched it. Every morning, he unlocked the box, made sure the coin remained inside, then locked it again. His crew believed it was his lucky charm. They were wrong. It was the reason he never slept. One stormy night, a young sailor named Thomas finally asked him, "Captain, why keep one coin when we've stolen thousands?" Edward's face turned pale. He quietly answered, "Because this one always comes back." The crew laughed. Edward did not. He slowly unlocked the wooden box. The ancient coin lay exactly where he had left it. Black gold, unlike any metal ever discovered. No king's face, no pirate symbol. Only one strange engraving, a skull, wearing a crown made of ship masts. Around it, 13 tiny anchors. Thomas reached toward it. Edward grabbed his wrist. "So help me, never touch it." "Why?" Edward stared at the coin. "Because the last man who held it buried himself alive." Silence filled the cabin. Before anyone could speak, a loud crash echoed across the deck. One of the sailors burst inside. "Captain, you'd better see this!" Everyone rushed above deck. The storm had disappeared. The sea was perfectly calm. Too calm. Every wave had stopped moving. Even the wind had vanished. Then they saw it. An island. No map had ever shown it. Black cliffs surrounded white beaches. At its center stood a single dead tree. No leaves, no branches, only twisted wood reaching toward the sky. Thomas whispered, "Where did it come from?" Edward's hands began shaking. "It found us." The crew looked at him. "You know this place?" Edward slowly nodded. "I escaped it." No one laughed anymore. The old captain removed the black coin from its box. The moment it touched the moonlight, the island answered. A deep bell echoed from somewhere inland. Once, twice, 3 times. The sea around the ship slowly began glowing. Not blue, gold. Tiny golden lights drifted beneath the water like stars. The oldest sailor aboard fell to his knees. "I've heard that bell before." Everyone looked at him. "When?" 40 years ago. The crew stared in disbelief. "But you're only 60. The old sailor smiled sadly. "I was." He rolled back his sleeve. His arm was covered in strange black veins. "They didn't steal my treasure. They stole my years." Edward quietly whispered, "We leave. Immediately. Now." No one argued. The crew rushed to raise the sails. Nothing happened. There was no wind. They dropped the oars. The water refused to move. The ship remained frozen, as though the sea itself had anchored them. Then, another sound echoed across the silent ocean. Not the bell. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Walking across the water. One step, another. A figure emerged from the golden mist. He wore a long black captain's coat, covered in faded gold embroidery. A rusted cutlass hung at his side. His beard reached almost to his waist. His hat was crowned with 13 ancient coins. He wasn't sailing. He was simply walking toward the ship. Thomas whispered, "That's impossible." Edward closed his eyes. I prayed. He would never find me again. The mysterious captain stopped beside the ship. He slowly looked up. His face wasn't skeletal. It wasn't monstrous. It looked completely human. Except for one thing. His eyes were made of solid gold. He smiled, almost kindly, then tipped his hat. "Good evening, Captain Hale." Edward could barely breathe. "You took everything." The golden-eyed captain nodded. "I know. And tonight, I've come for what you still owe." The black coin suddenly leaped from Edward's hand. It floated into the air. The 13 coins on the stranger's hat began glowing. Far beneath the ship, something enormous opened its eyes. Far beneath the ship, something enormous opened its eyes. The ocean immediately trembled, not with waves, with fear. The golden lights beneath the water slowly gathered together. Millions of them. They swirled beneath Captain Edward Hale's ship, forming the shape of a giant skull. The crew stumbled backward. No one dared speak. The golden-eyed captain remained perfectly calm. He looked toward Edward. "You've hidden long enough," Edward whispered. "I gave it back." The stranger slowly shook his head. "No. You returned the gold. But you never returned the promise." Silence. Thomas looked at his captain. "What promise?" Edward refused to answer. Instead, he drew his sword, not to fight, to protect the crew. "Stay behind me." The golden-eyed captain smiled. "You still think steel can change fate?" He slowly removed one of the 13 ancient coins from his hat. The moment it touched the sea, the water turned black. The giant golden skull beneath the ship disappeared. Then, the ocean split apart. Not from an explosion, as though 2 invisible hands had pulled it open. The crew stared into the impossible trench beneath them. It stretched so deep, the lantern light could not reach the bottom. Then, they heard chains, massive chains, dragging across stone. A voice echoed upward, ancient, deep, filled with endless sorrow. "Who carries the 13th coin?" Edward slowly raised the black coin. "I do," the voice answered immediately. "Then the debt is still unpaid." The sea closed again. Everything became calm. Too calm. Thomas looked toward the golden-eyed captain. "Who are you?" The stranger removed his hat. "My name has been forgotten." "But sailors once called me Captain Mordren." The oldest sailor aboard gasped. "No, that's impossible. You died 300 years ago." Captain Mordren quietly laughed. "I did. And every 50 years, I do again." The crew stared in horror. "You mean you're dead?" Mordren smiled. "No, worse." He slowly unbuttoned his black captain's coat. There was no wound, no heart, no flesh. Inside his chest rested a treasure chest, small, made of black oak, wrapped in 13 rusted chains. Each chain held a glowing coin, except one. One chain was empty. Mordren pointed toward Edward's hand. "You're carrying the final lock." Edward's hands began shaking. Thomas whispered, "What is that?" Edward finally answered, "It's not treasure. It's a key." Lightning flashed across the clear sky, not from clouds, from nowhere. Every compass aboard the ship suddenly began spinning. The sails hung motionless. Time itself seemed to stop. Mordren stepped onto the deck. No one tried to stop him. Every pirate instinctively moved aside. He wasn't threatening them. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough. He walked directly toward Edward. "Tell them." Edward lowered his head. "I can't. You must. They deserve to know what they're sailing toward." Thomas grabbed Edward's shoulder. "Captain, what did you do?" Edward slowly looked up, his eyes filled with regret. 30 years ago, I found the island. I found the treasure. I thought I'd become the richest pirate alive." He laughed bitterly. "I didn't steal gold. I stole someone else's place." Silence. Mordred quietly nodded. "He took my coin. So I took his years." Edward pulled back his sleeve. The crew gasped. His arm wasn't old or young. It changed every few seconds. 20 years old, then 70, then 40, then 90. His age shifted like moving water. "I've never known how old I really am." Thomas stepped backward. "So the stories were true?" Edward nodded. "The treasure is alive." Suddenly, the black coin burned in Edward's hand, not with fire, with golden light. It floated upward. The empty chain inside Mordred's chest slowly opened. The coin drifted toward it. Edward reached desperately. "No. If it returns..." Mordred looked at him sadly. "You finally become what time has been trying to make you." The coin locked itself into the empty chain. Click. The sound echoed across the ocean. Every one of the 13 chains glowed. The black treasure chest inside Mordred's chest slowly opened. The crew expected mountains of gold, jewels, crowns. Instead, they saw darkness, endless darkness. From within that darkness, thousands of whispers escaped. Not one language, every pirate, every sailor, every explorer who had ever vanished at sea, all whispering the same sentence. The treasure must never be buried again. The chest suddenly burst open. A map slowly floated into the air. Its parchment looked older than history. No continents were drawn, no oceans, only one island. At its center, a giant circle made from 13 skulls. Across the top, someone had written 6 terrifying words. "Here lies the first treasure." Captain Mordred looked toward Edward, then toward the crew. His golden eyes became unusually serious. "You think pirates buried treasure? To hide it." He slowly rolled up the ancient map. "They buried it to keep something locked beneath it." Far below the ship, the ocean floor cracked open, and from the darkness beneath the sea, a colossal stone hand began reaching upward. The colossal stone hand continued rising from the ocean floor. It wasn't reaching toward the ship. It was reaching for the island. Captain Mordred quietly removed his hat. Every pirate aboard Edward Hale's ship instinctively stepped backward. No one had ever seen the legendary captain show respect. Until now, Edward whispered, "It remembers." Thomas stared at the gigantic hand. "What is it?" Mordred answered without looking away. "The first guardian." The sea around the island began glowing brighter. Golden light poured through the water like rivers beneath glass. Then, the island itself moved, not because of an earthquake, because it was rising. Slowly, silently, the beaches disappeared beneath the waves. The black cliffs climbed higher. Ancient stone walls emerged from beneath the ocean. Massive towers followed. Then, an entire fortress, not built by pirates, not built by kings, built by people history had forgotten. The crew stood speechless. Thomas whispered, "That wasn't an island." Edward slowly nodded. It never was. The stone hand finally reached the fortress. Instead of attacking, it rested gently against the ancient wall, like an old friend returning home. The massive gates slowly opened. Inside, there was no treasure, no gold, no jewels, only 13 empty stone thrones. Each throne held a black chest. Every chest was sealed with a glowing golden coin, except one. One chest stood open. Its coin was missing. Edward lowered his eyes. I opened it. Mordred nodded, and everything changed. The giant fortress bell suddenly rang, not 3 times, 13. Each toll echoed across every ocean on Earth. In forgotten pirate coves, old compasses began spinning. Buried treasure chests trembled beneath the sand. Ancient maps hidden inside museums slowly rewrote themselves. The world had heard the bell. Thomas looked toward Captain Mordred. What exactly is inside those chests? Mordred slowly climbed onto the ancient fortress. The crew followed carefully. Every step echoed like walking through history itself. He stopped before one sealed chest, then quietly said, "Open it." Thomas immediately shook his head. "I thought you said never to." "I didn't ask. I commanded." With trembling hands, Thomas touched the glowing coin. The seal disappeared. The chest slowly opened. Inside, there wasn't a single gold coin. Instead, there was an hourglass. Its glass was perfectly clear. Its sand was made of tiny golden lights. The sand wasn't falling downward. It flowed upward. Thomas frowned. "What's it doing?" Mordred quietly answered, "Returning." "Returning where?" "To the man." "Who stole it?" Silence. Edward slowly closed his eyes. "My ears." Mordred nodded. "Every pirate who took treasure never stole gold. They stole time." The crew looked horrified. The captain continued, "The treasure granted wealth, but it demanded payment. Years, memories, entire lifetimes." Thomas looked around the fortress. "So all these chests hold stolen lives?" Mordred smiled sadly. "Exactly." Suddenly, every sealed chest began vibrating. One by one, their glowing coins lifted into the air. The hourglass inside Thomas's hands cracked. Golden sand escaped, not onto the floor, into the sky. Thousands of streams of golden light rose above the fortress. Every stream became the face of a sailor, a pirate, a queen, a child, people from every century, all smiling, all finally free. Edward whispered, "The treasure was never wealth. It was everyone's stolen tomorrow." The giant stone guardian slowly opened its eyes. They weren't made of rock. They glowed with brilliant blue light. It looked directly at Edward. Then, it spoke. Its voice sounded like crashing waves. "The last coin has returned. The prison is unlocked." The fortress suddenly shook. Cracks raced across every throne. The 13 black chests burst open at once, not with treasure, with darkness. A cold wind swept across the island. The golden spirits vanished. The sky turned black. Captain Mordred's expression changed instantly. "No," Edward looked toward him. "I thought returning the coin ended the curse." Mordred slowly shook his head. "It ended the lock." Thomas stared in disbelief. What was imprisoned? The stone guardian looked toward the center of the fortress, its enormous face filled with sorrow. It wasn't guarding treasure. It was guarding the first pirate. The ground split apart. A gigantic circular doorway slowly rose from beneath the fortress. Ancient symbols glowed around its edge. The darkness inside seemed endless. Then, from somewhere deep below, a single boot stepped onto the stone staircase. Heavy, slow, patient. A second step followed, then another. Captain Mordred quietly removed his sword. Edward did the same. Every pirate aboard the ship instinctively lowered their heads. Thomas whispered, "Who could frighten pirates?" Mordred answered with trembling lips, "The man who taught the world how to steal." The footsteps continued, slow, heavy, unhurried. Every sound echoed through the ancient fortress like thunder beneath the sea. No pirate moved, not even Captain Mordred. The darkness inside the stone doorway slowly parted. A man emerged. He wore no crown, no jewels, no gold, only a weathered black coat stitched together from pieces of countless old sails. Around his waist hung dozens of empty scabbards. Every sword had long since rusted away. His grey beard reached his chest. His long hair drifted in a wind that didn't exist. His face looked tired, not cruel, not angry, simply older than history itself. Thomas whispered, "That's him?" Captain Mordred lowered his head. "The first captain." The old man slowly climbed the final stair. His eyes were unlike anything the crew had ever seen. One eye was deep blue. The other was completely black. He looked across the fortress. His gaze rested upon every broken chest, every shattered throne. Finally, he looked at Edward. "So, another lock has fallen." Edward tightened his grip on his sword. "Who are you?" The old man smiled faintly. "History has given me many names. Thief, king, devil, pirate. But before all of them, I was simply a sailor." The stone guardian bowed its enormous head. Even the ocean itself seemed to become still. Thomas stared in disbelief. "The guardian is bowing to him," Captain Mordred answered quietly. "It always has." The first captain slowly walked to the center of the fortress. There, an ancient stone compass was embedded in the floor. Instead of pointing north, its needle pointed downward, toward the heart of the earth. He knelt beside it, placed one hand upon the stone. Immediately, the fortress changed. The walls disappeared. The ocean vanished. The pirates suddenly stood inside another time, thousands of years earlier. There were no pirate ships, no kingdoms, no empires, only wooden fishing boats sailing across endless blue water. The first captain appeared again, young, strong, smiling. He wasn't stealing, he wasn't fighting. He was rescuing drowning sailors from a violent storm. Thomas frowned. This can't be right. He was saving people. Captain Mordred nodded. He always did. The vision continued. The young captain discovered a strange island after the storm. The same island, but it wasn't black. It was beautiful, covered in giant white trees. Crystal rivers flowed through green valleys. Birds filled the sky. At the center stood a single golden chest, untouched, waiting. The young sailor approached it carefully. He opened the lid. Inside, there wasn't treasure, there wasn't gold, there was only a glowing flame. Small, golden, perfectly still. The first captain reached toward it. A voice echoed from nowhere. "Every treasure has a price. Will you carry it?" Without hesitation, the young sailor answered, "If it saves others." "Yes." The flame entered his chest. The vision shattered. The pirates returned to the fortress. Thomas looked toward the old captain. "So you never stole the treasure?" The old man quietly shook his head. "I accepted its burden." The world changed the story. Captain Mordred stepped forward. "Tell them what happened next." The first captain looked toward the sea. They discovered the flame. They wanted its power. They wanted endless wealth. They wanted endless life. So I hid it. I divided its power into 13 sacred coins. I built this fortress. I chose 13 guardians. And mankind called us pirates. Silence filled the island. Edward slowly lowered his sword. So every treasure map, the first captain nodded, led here. But not to find treasure, to test greed. Thomas blinked. Then why did people always find gold? The old captain smiled sadly. The fortress gives everyone exactly what they desire. If they seek riches, they receive riches. If they seek power, they receive power. But before leaving, it quietly takes something far more valuable. Captain Mordred finished the sentence. Time, the first captain nodded, because those who value gold rarely value life. A sudden roar interrupted them. The black doorway exploded with darkness. The broken treasure chests shook violently. The empty thrones cracked apart. The stone guardian stepped backward for the very first time. Fear filled its glowing blue eyes. The first captain slowly closed his own eyes. No, he's awake. Edward looked around. Who? The old captain pointed toward the darkness beneath the fortress. The only man who refused the treasure. Thomas frowned. Wouldn't that make him the wisest? The first captain's voice became unusually serious. No, it made him the only man the treasure could never control. A deafening crack echoed across the island. The ancient stone compass shattered into 13 pieces. From the endless darkness below, a massive iron chain shot upward. Then another. Then another. Each chain was thicker than the mast of a warship. They weren't holding something down anymore. They were breaking, one after another. The first captain whispered words that froze every pirate where they stood. For thousands of years, everyone believed the treasure was cursed. They were wrong. The treasure was the lock. The final chain snapped. The entire fortress tilted violently. Deep beneath the island, a colossal laugh echoed through the sea. Not cruel, not mad, confident, as though someone had been patiently waiting since the beginning of history. Then a voice rose from the darkness. At last, the sea belongs to me again. The laugh continued. Deep beneath the fortress, it echoed through every stone, every tunnel, every forgotten cave beneath the ocean. The sea itself began pulling away from the island. Miles of water retreated. The ocean floor was exposed. Ancient shipwrecks appeared everywhere, thousands of them. Pirate ships, warships, merchant vessels, explorers, every ship that had ever mysteriously disappeared lay scattered across the seabed. Captain Edward Hale could barely breathe. So many. Captain Mordred quietly nodded. They never sank. They were collected. Thomas looked across the endless graveyard. Cannons, broken masts, rusted anchors, mountains of treasure. It stretched farther than the eye could see. An entire civilization built from lost ships. Then, the sand began moving. Not because of the wind, because something beneath it was rising. The first captain slowly removed his weathered coat. For the first time, the crew saw the scars covering his body. Hundreds of them, each shaped like a compass. Captain Mordred whispered. He remembers every captain. Thomas frowned. What do you mean? The first captain answered without turning around. Every pirate who ever stole treasure gave me one memory. He closed his eyes. I remember every face, every promise, every betrayal. I remember them all because they forgot. The sand suddenly exploded upward. A colossal figure emerged, not made of flesh, not made of stone. Its entire body was built from thousands of broken shipwrecks. Cannons formed its shoulders. Anchors hung like chains from its arms. Its ribs were broken masts. Its cloak was woven from torn pirate sails. Its face was hidden behind a giant iron captain's mask. Only two burning blue eyes shone through the darkness. The giant stood taller than the fortress itself. The stone guardian slowly stepped forward. For the first time, the two ancient beings faced one another. The giant laughed again. "So, the old jailer still stands," the guardian answered. "I stand until the last tide." The masked giant looked toward the first captain. "You failed." The old sailor quietly nodded. "I know. You trusted mankind. I did. And look what they became." The giant spread his enormous arms. The entire ship graveyard began shaking. Thousands of rusted treasure chests burst open. Gold coins poured across the ocean floor. Jewels sparkled beneath the moonlight. Crowns, silver, emeralds, rubies, enough wealth to make every kingdom on earth kneel. Thomas stared in amazement. "So this is the greatest pirate treasure?" The first captain slowly shook his head. "No, it isn't." The giant laughed. "They still don't understand." Captain Mordrin closed his eyes. "They never do." The masked giant snapped his fingers. Instantly, every gold coin began moving, not rolling, crawling, like living insects. Millions of coins climbed over one another.
They rushed toward the pirates. Edward shouted, "Back!" The crew ran, but the coins were faster. They climbed boots, legs, hands. Every pirate touched by a single coin froze instantly. Not dead, remembering. Thomas gasped. Visions flooded his mind. He saw pirates stealing Spanish gold. He saw ships burning, families crying on distant shores. He saw countless captains burying treasure, then murdering their own crews to protect it. Every crime, every lie, every act of greed, all preserved inside the treasure itself. Thomas screamed, "They're memories!" The first captain nodded. "The treasure remembers everything." The masked giant looked toward Edward. "Gold doesn't make men evil. It simply never forgets the evil already inside them." Edward slowly dropped to one knee. He remembered every ship he had robbed, every innocent sailor he had abandoned, every friend he had betrayed. Tears rolled down his face. "I thought time had punished me." The first captain quietly answered, "No, memory did." The masked giant stepped closer. Each footstep shook the island. "My name has been erased, but before pirates, before kings, before nations, I was called the Collector. I gathered every act of greed, so mankind could never deny it." He pointed toward the endless treasure. "This isn't wealth. It's evidence." Silence. The crew looked differently at the mountains of gold. Every coin represented someone's suffering. Every jewel, someone's betrayal. Every crown, someone's ambition. The first captain slowly drew an ancient cutlass. Its blade glowed with soft blue light. The treasure was never the curse. The curse was believing it belonged to us. The collector's burning eyes narrowed. And now, the evidence returns to the world. He raised one gigantic hand. Across every ocean, buried pirate treasure began rising from the earth. Hidden chests burst through beaches. Sunken ships floated back to the surface. Secret caves opened. Every fortune ever hidden started returning, not to reward mankind, but to confront it. Captain Mordrin stared toward the horizon. "It's happening," Edward whispered. "What is?" The old pirate answered. "For the first time in history, every buried treasure is coming home." At that exact moment, the sea behind the fortress split apart. A massive fleet slowly emerged from the darkness. Hundreds of pirate ships, every one of them impossibly preserved. Their black sails were untouched by time. No crew stood on their decks, only silence, until every lantern aboard every ship lit at once, and from the flagship, A bell rang exactly 13 times. The first captain's face turned pale. He whispered only 4 words. "The lost fleet has returned." The 13 bells faded. Silence swallowed the sea. Then, one by one, the ghostly ships began moving. No sails filled with wind, no oars touched the water. Yet the fleet advanced as though the ocean itself obeyed its command. Hundreds of black ships, every mast perfectly preserved, every cannon polished, every flag torn, but still flying. Not one sailor stood upon their decks. Captain Edward Hale whispered, "Who's sailing them?" Captain Mordrin answered without looking away, "No one." They remember where they were meant to go. The lost fleet slowly surrounded the ancient fortress. The ships formed a perfect circle, not attacking, waiting. The collector looked toward the fleet. "They've come." The first captain closed his eyes. "I prayed they never would." Thomas frowned. "What is the lost fleet?" The old captain pointed toward the nearest ship. "Go aboard." Thomas hesitated. Captain Edward nodded. "We have no choice." A narrow stone bridge slowly rose from the fortress toward the closest vessel. Every pirate crossed carefully. The moment Thomas stepped onto the deck, the ship awakened. Lanterns burst into blue flame. The wheel began turning by itself. The ropes tightened, the anchor lifted. Yet, there wasn't a single living soul aboard. Only empty coats hanging beside the mast, empty boots, empty hats, as though an invisible crew had vanished in the middle of their duties. Thomas picked up one weathered captain's journal. Its pages were blank, until he opened it. Words immediately appeared, not written by ink, by light. Captain Samuel Briggs, crew 84, treasure collected $14 million, payment received, payment collected. Thomas looked confused. Payment? Captain Mordrin gently took the journal. "Read the final page." Thomas turned to the end. Only one sentence had been written. "We took the gold. The sea took our names." A cold chill swept across the deck. Every empty coat suddenly stood upright, not filled with bodies, filled with mist. One by one, transparent sailors appeared, hundreds of them. None looked angry, none looked cursed. They simply looked forgotten. One sailor removed his hat. "I remember my captain," another whispered. "I remember my ship." A third looked toward Thomas. "I don't remember. My own face." Captain Edward slowly lowered his head. "The treasure stole their memories." Captain Mordrin nodded. "Not all of them. It stole their identity." Across the fleet, every abandoned ship awakened. Thousands of ghostly sailors appeared. Some searched the decks, others stared into the sea. Many quietly repeated the same question. "Who was I?" The sound spread from ship to ship, until the entire fleet echoed with those 3 heartbreaking words. The first captain stood silently, his eyes filled with sorrow. They didn't lose their lives. They lost themselves. The collector raised one enormous hand. They chose gold over memory. The treasure only accepted their decision. Suddenly, in the flagship's cabin door slowly opened. Unlike every other ship, someone was inside. A lone figure sat behind an ancient oak table. He calmly polished a golden compass. His black captain's coat looked untouched by time. Silver hair rested upon his shoulders. His beard was neatly braided with tiny golden coins. Without looking up, he quietly spoke. "I've been waiting." Captain Mordrin's expression immediately changed. "No." The Admiral. The first captain's face became unusually serious. He should still be asleep. The mysterious man finally looked up. One eye was silver, the other was entirely black. He smiled, not warmly, knowingly. "So, all 13 locks have fallen." Thomas whispered, "Who is he?" Captain Edward answered with trembling lips. "He commanded every pirate, before pirates even existed." The admiral slowly stood. He picked up the golden compass. Instead of pointing north, its needle pointed directly at Elias. No, at Thomas. The old man frowned slightly. So, the sea has chosen another witness. Thomas stepped backward. I don't understand. You don't have to. You only have to remember. The admiral walked onto the deck. Every ghostly sailor immediately bowed. Even the collector lowered his head. The stone guardian did the same. Only the first captain remained standing. The admiral smiled. My old friend, you've protected the truth for thousands of years. The first captain quietly nodded. And you've hidden it. The admiral looked toward the endless horizon. No. I've been waiting for someone worthy to hear it. The golden compass suddenly began spinning wildly. Its needle stopped, pointing far beyond the lost fleet, beyond the island, beyond the sea itself. The horizon split apart, not with lightning, with light. An enormous island slowly rose from beneath the ocean. It dwarfed every mountain around it. Its cliffs were carved into the faces of forgotten captains. At its highest peak stood a colossal vault made entirely of black stone. Across its massive doors, 13 glowing coins formed a perfect circle, and above them, 8 words were carved so deeply they could be read from miles away. Not every treasure was meant to be found. The admiral quietly whispered, "Welcome to the last island." The last island continued rising from the sea. The ocean bowed around it, not with waves, with silence. No bird flew above it, no cloud crossed its sky. Even the wind refused to touch its cliffs. Every pirate aboard the lost fleet stood frozen. Captain Edward Hale had seen impossible things before: ghost ships, living treasure, a pirate who could not die, yet nothing compared to this. The island wasn't merely ancient, it looked older than the sea itself. Captain Mordrin slowly removed his hat. The beginning has awakened. Thomas looked toward the gigantic black vault at the summit. What is inside? No one answered. Even the first captain remained silent. The admiral slowly walked toward the edge of his ship. His golden compass continued pointing at the mountain. It remembers. Who may enter? The collector suddenly spoke. No one has opened that vault since the first tide. Thomas frowned. The first tide? The first captain quietly nodded. Before kingdoms, before empires, before pirates, when mankind first sailed the sea, the ocean beneath the fleet suddenly became transparent, far below. Thomas saw another city, larger than the one above. Entire streets carved into the seabed, massive harbors, thousands of ancient ships, still anchored exactly where they had been left. None had rotted, none had broken. They simply waited. Captain Edward whispered, "An entire civilization." Captain Mordrin nodded.
Captain Mordrin nodded. They weren't lost. They were hidden. The admiral raised one hand. Immediately, every ghost ship sailed toward the island. No captain gave orders. No sailor raised a sail. The fleet simply remembered the journey. As they approached the shore, the sea suddenly became gold, not reflecting sunlight, glowing from within. Millions of ancient coins rested beneath the crystal-clear water. Every coin carried a different name. Thomas knelt beside the water. He picked up one carefully. Instead of a king's face, he saw a young sailor smiling. The coin dissolved into light. A voice whispered, "Thank you." Thomas looked around. Who said that? The first captain answered, "The sea. The treasure never trapped souls. It protected memories." Captain Edward looked across the golden shoreline. So every coin was someone. The old sailor nodded. Every fortune ever buried was a life someone tried to buy. Suddenly, the giant vault high above the island echoed with a deep metallic sound. One lock turned, then another, then another. 13 locks began opening by themselves. The Admiral's expression darkened. No, it shouldn't answer yet. The Collector looked toward Thomas. It isn't answering us. It's answering the witness. Every eye turned toward Thomas. He stepped backward. "I've never been here." The first captain smiled softly. "No, but the island has been waiting for you." The ground beneath Thomas's feet began glowing. Ancient symbols spread across the beach like rivers of blue fire. A pathway appeared, not made of stone, made of light. It stretched from the shore all the way to the vault. Captain Mordrin grabbed Thomas's shoulder. "Whatever happens, don't leave the path." Thomas looked confused. "What if I do?" No one answered. The silence itself was the answer. Slowly, Thomas began climbing. Every step awakened another memory. The cliffs showed moving images. Pirates sharing treasure with starving villagers. Captains rescuing enemy sailors during storms. Mothers waiting beside lonely harbors. Children watching ships disappear beyond the horizon. Thomas frowned. "These aren't pirate legends." The first captain smiled. "No. They're the stories history stopped telling." The climb continued. Halfway to the summit, Thomas discovered something impossible. Hundreds of pirate flags hung from stone poles. Black flags, red flags, blue flags, every famous pirate banner from history. Yet beneath each one, someone had carved the same sentence. Not thieves, keepers. Captain Edward stared in disbelief. So the first pirates weren't robbers. Captain Mordrin quietly answered. They became robbers after forgetting why they sailed. The Admiral looked toward the horizon. Greed changed the story. History repeated it. At last, Thomas reached the summit. The colossal vault towered above him. Its black doors were taller than mountains. 13 glowing coins floated before them. One by one, they moved aside. The doors slowly opened, not outward, inward. The darkness inside disappeared, revealing a room unlike anything Thomas had imagined. No treasure, no gold, no jewels, only a perfectly calm ocean. Inside the vault, an endless sea stretched beyond the doorway. Its water reflected stars, even though it was daytime. At the very center floated a single wooden ship. Small, weathered, simple. No cannons, no treasure chests, no black sails, just an ordinary fishing boat. The first captain fell to one knee. Captain Mordrin did the same. The Admiral removed his hat. Even the Collector bowed his massive head. Thomas whispered, "Why are you kneeling before an empty boat?" The first captain answered with tears in his eyes. "Because every pirate ship, every navy, every treasure fleet came from that one." Thomas slowly walked toward the quiet vessel. Carved into its wooden bow were 6 ancient words. The first ship never returned home. The boat gently rocked, though there was no wind. Then, someone inside slowly stood up. The small wooden boat gently rocked. No waves touched it. No wind moved it. Yet it floated upon the endless sea inside the vault, as though time itself carried it forward. The figure slowly stood. Every pirate held their breath. He wasn't dressed like a king. He wasn't dressed like a pirate. He wore simple linen clothes. A weathered brown cloak rested upon his shoulders. His hands were rough. His face carried the calm expression of someone who had spent a lifetime staring at the horizon. His beard was long. His hair reached his shoulders. He looked ordinary. Thomas frowned. "That's him," Captain Mordrin whispered. "The first sailor." The man stepped onto the water, not into it, onto it. Each footstep created a circle of blue light beneath his feet. The endless sea remained perfectly calm. He stopped before Thomas. His eyes were unlike any Thomas had ever seen. One reflected sunrise, the other reflected sunset. He smiled gently. "You came." Thomas looked around. "You know me?" The old sailor nodded. "I've known every witness. For thousands of years." Captain Edward slowly removed his hat. "So you're the first pirate?" The old man quietly laughed. "No, I sailed before piracy existed." Silence filled the vault. The first captain lowered his head. "He taught us." Thomas looked confused. "Taught you what?" The old sailor slowly pointed toward the endless sea. "How to cross it." Immediately, the water beneath them changed. Visions appeared, not reflections. History. The oceans of the world before any ships existed. No kingdoms, no ports, no maps. Only endless water stretching beyond the horizon. Then, the small wooden boat appeared, completely alone. The old sailor stood inside it. He wasn't searching for treasure. He wasn't searching for land. He was following a single star. Thomas whispered, "You were the first explorer." The old sailor smiled. "No, I was the first man who believed there was something beyond the horizon." The vision continued. Years passed. Other sailors followed him. Fishing boats became fleets. Villages became ports. Trade routes crossed the seas. The world slowly connected. Then, everything changed. One captain discovered gold. Another discovered jewels. Another discovered power. The visions darkened. Ships began attacking one another. Cannons roared. Flags turned black. Greed spread across every ocean. The old sailor quietly closed his eyes. The sea united mankind. We divided ourselves? Captain Mordrin whispered. "So you built the treasure?" The old sailor nodded. "I created something people would chase, so they would stop chasing each other." Thomas stared at him. The treasure was supposed to end war? It was. For a while, it did. The collector stepped forward. "But greed always grows." The old sailor nodded sadly. "So I divided the burden. 13 guardians, 13 coins, one promise." Captain Edward quietly asked, "What promise?" The first sailor looked toward the horizon. "Never let treasure become more valuable than people." Silence. The words echoed across the endless sea. Thomas slowly lowered his head. "We failed?" The old sailor gently smiled. "No. Some did. Others didn't. Hope survives. One person at a time." Suddenly, the peaceful sea rippled, not with waves, with shadows. The reflections beneath the water slowly disappeared. Darkness spread outward. The first sailor looked down. His expression changed. "No." The admiral stepped backward. "It found us." Thomas frowned. "What found us?" The endless sea suddenly became black. Not dark, black. The calm water transformed into liquid night. From beneath the surface, thousands of skeletal hands reached upward, not attacking, begging. Captain Edward recognized them immediately. "The missing crews." Captain Mordrin slowly shook his head. "No, they're older. Much older." The collector whispered, "They're the ones who never stopped searching." The black water erupted. A gigantic ship slowly rose from beneath the endless sea. It dwarfed every pirate vessel ever built. Its hull was carved from black stone. Its sails looked like living shadows. Its anchor alone was larger than an entire warship. No flag flew above it. Instead, a massive black crown rested atop its highest mast. The first captain immediately drew his glowing cutlass. The admiral gripped his golden compass. The collector raised both enormous arms. Even the first sailor took one cautious step backward. Thomas whispered, "I've never seen you afraid." The old sailor answered quietly, "Because you've never seen the ship that never found shore." The gigantic vessel stopped. Its deck remained empty. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a single cabin door slowly opened. A tall figure emerged. He wore a captain's coat darker than midnight. His beard flowed like black smoke. His long hair moved without wind. His face looked human, except there wasn't a single reflection in his eyes. Only endless darkness. He slowly removed his hat. Every shadow across the endless sea bowed to him. The first sailor whispered a name that no pirate had spoken for thousands of years. "The Black Navigator." The mysterious captain smiled. "I've crossed every ocean. I've found every treasure. And tonight, I've finally found the men who hid the last one." Behind him, the black ship's cannons slowly turned toward the island, but they weren't loaded with cannonballs. Inside every cannon burned a swirling darkness, older than the sea itself. The Black Navigator stepped onto the deck. Instantly, every shadow across the endless sea became still. The darkness inside the giant cannons pulsed like living hearts. No one moved. Not the first sailor, not the first captain, not even the collector. Thomas whispered, "Who is he?" The first sailor answered quietly, "He was my first student." Silence. Thomas stared in disbelief. "He learned from you?" The old sailor slowly nodded. "I taught him to follow the stars. I never imagined he would one day follow only darkness." The Black Navigator smiled. "You taught me something far more valuable." He raised an ancient compass. "I learned that every destination has a price." Captain Mordrin stepped forward. "You betrayed us." The mysterious captain looked at him calmly. "No. I simply finished what everyone else was too afraid to begin." The gigantic black ship slowly drifted closer. Its anchor dropped into the endless sea. Instead of sinking, the chain stretched downward forever, as though there was no bottom. The Black Navigator pointed toward the first sailor. "You buried the truth." The old sailor quietly answered, "I protected it. You imprisoned it. I preserved it." The two captains stared at one another. Neither reached for a weapon. Their battle had never been fought with swords, only beliefs. The Black Navigator spread his arms. "Look at mankind. They crossed every ocean. They conquered every continent. They discovered every treasure. And still, they wanted more." The collector lowered his head. "He isn't wrong." The first captain answered firmly, "No. But he isn't completely right." The Black Navigator laughed. "Hope? Again. You've spent thousands of years waiting for hope." He slowly walked toward Thomas. "You, the witness. Tell me, if every treasure disappeared tomorrow, would mankind stop fighting?" Thomas remained silent. The question lingered in the air. Finally, he whispered, "No." The Black Navigator nodded. "Exactly. The treasure was never the problem. It only revealed what already lived inside every human heart." The endless sea became completely black. The stars vanished from its surface. The first sailor quietly closed his eyes. "The final map." Thomas frowned. "What map?" The old sailor pointed beneath the water. Slowly, an enormous parchment rose from the sea. It wasn't carried by anyone. The water itself lifted it. The map stretched for miles, larger than kingdoms, larger than oceans. Captain Edward stared in amazement. That's impossible, the Admiral quietly answered. No, it's the original chart. Thomas looked carefully. There were no islands, no coastlines, no continents, only countless tiny glowing dots, millions of them. What are those? The first sailor smiled sadly. They aren't places. They're people. The entire map was mankind. Every glowing point represented a single human life. Every line connecting them represented a choice, a kindness, a betrayal, a sacrifice, a lie. The map wasn't showing the world. It was showing humanity itself. Captain Mordrin whispered. So that's why no one could find the last island. The Admiral nodded. It never existed. On Earth. Thomas looked toward the Black Navigator. You've been searching inside people. The mysterious captain smiled. Finally, someone understands. He touched one glowing point on the gigantic map. Instantly, an entire section turned black. Thousands of nearby lights faded. One act of greed. He touched another. Another region darkened. One betrayal. Another. One lie. Darkness spread across the living map. The first captain stepped forward, then gently placed one hand upon the parchment. A single dark point became gold again. One sacrifice. Another. One act of mercy. Another. One person who chooses someone else before themselves. Golden light spread just as quickly. Hope and greed moved across the map together. Neither truly disappeared. The Black Navigator quietly sighed. You still don't understand. He raised both hands. The black ship trembled. Every cannon turned toward the glowing map. The darkness inside them roared. They don't need treasure anymore. They've become their own curse. The first sailor looked toward Thomas. This is why we waited. Thomas swallowed hard. For me? No. For someone who would remember.